Welcome to our second part on Open Line on Dodds. With us, we have the Director of Dodds Europe, Diana Oman, Chief of Staff, Sue Gurley, and Chief of Education Division, Harvey Gary. I'm George Smith. Well, we talked right before the news about we're interested in finding out a little bit more about military construction. We already, in the first hour, talked about what schools are closing and what changes are happening there as far as the big picture stuff. As far as the military construction, what's the future look like for Dodds Europe?
Well, there's always schools that need constructing, and we have a huge project at Kaiserslautern. We need to replace the Kaiserslautern High School, so that will take a couple of years because it will be a phased project. We can't just tear down buildings and put up a new one because we don't have a space to put those youngsters, so we'll continue to teach youngsters, which means we're going to phase this project. But we're all looking forward to that project and having a new school there. We have two projects over in the Stuttgart area. One is a new elementary school for Berbligen, and then a new high school for the Stuttgart high school students. And both of those sites are located out at the Berbligen base. And then we have a large project going on in Vicenza, where we're going to be building a middle school and an elementary school in a new housing area. And that is an ongoing project in conjunction with relocation of some Army folks. Then there are some smaller projects along the way. We hope that we can construct a new school at Alkenbury, but that'll be down the road. There's some facilities that we need at Ansbach and at Liberty, and there's some other sites where there are smaller projects, but our biggest projects are Kaiserslautern, Berbligen, and Vicenza.
If you have a question for our open line, you may call DSN 489-4595 or civilian 0621-460-85-595. I'll give that civilian number again, 0621-460-85-595, or open line at afne.army.mil on the internet. We have someone who's calling here from Grafenwehr, and it's Chaplain Peter. Good morning.
Good morning.
Your question.
I'm here in the Graf area, and I've done education and stuff prior to coming into the military. And I was wondering, what would be the possibilities of starting a VOTEC high school in the Graf-Vilseck area?
Okay, a good question. A vocational, technical type operation, huh?
Mm-hmm. I look at the situation. I was in Newark, New Jersey for quite some time, and a large problem we had there is just coming to light in a national situation in that many students don't even graduate high school, which is somewhat of an issue also in the military. And I'm considering the idea that a lot of kids really don't want to go on to college, which is what a lot of the education system is geared upon, and would much rather have a more hands-on sort of an education, and they'd probably stay in school and excel more if there was a VOTEC program.
Well, you came to the right place on your radio dial. The Chief of the Education Division, Harvey Gary, has an answer for you.
Thank you. Well, thanks for the question. This is one of the issues that we kind of struggle with is what is the best program of study for our high school students, and we recognize that young adults have a lot of different ambitions, and they want to steer themselves in different directions, and not all of our kids decide to go straight into a university right after they graduate, and so the challenge for us is to determine, well, what is the best course of preparation that we can offer our students so that they can do basically anything they want once they graduate. And so one of the answers to the question is we've tried to put together an academic program that provides that foundation, that preparation, whether it's for university or an apprenticeship program or a vocational program once the student leaves our school. The other thing that we've done in the last about 6 years is a professional technical studies program in which we've developed courses of study in culinary arts, in health sciences, allied health sciences, a program that we're trying to build right now in the Kaiserslautern-Ramstein area, video production, and computer-assisted design, among other things. we've talked on occasion about how could we perhaps put a center together, sort of like what you're talking about, and where would that best be situated. But that becomes a very ambitious project, and what we would have to try to figure out is, would we be able to support a school which is essentially a magnet school for vocational studies in any one location, or would we have to make this a center where you get into questions about, well, would we need a dormitory? Would we need some sort of residence facilities and home away from home programs? And that is not something that has really been supported by our military partners. Quite frankly, what we've really been asked to do is to look at what can we best do to support students' post-secondary plans and how they might be best prepared to make those choices.
Okay.
How would you feel about a mentor program or an internship program working with local military and the facilities that we already have at our disposal? So, for example, during a set period of time, like a work-study idea, where during a set period of time, people who are interested in culinary arts are allowed to put some time into a dining facility that's already on post, or someone who's considering automotives can work over in somebody's motor pool with the guidance of an NCO, or somebody else will be willing to take the time to do that.
That's a wonderful program, and in fact, we've got that in place in a number of our high schools. And I'll tell you where it works really, really well. When you've got a mentor in a dining facility, like you say, or a motor pool, or in a television production center, that's a tremendously rewarding experience for the student, and it is something that we really encourage, and our partners on the NAVUR, Army Europe, Air Force Europe side have been very enthusiastic about supporting. Of course, you may realize that part of the challenge that goes along with that is to find the vocational area, the center, where you've got somebody who is willing to take on the responsibility for mentoring a student and to kind of keep an eye on what's going on and to give them a meaningful experience. Each of our high schools are doing that to one degree or another, and it's something that we really try to encourage. And when possible, if there's something that's identified to us that's standing in the way of the success of that program, we address that directly with either the command or with higher authority, so that we can make something available to our kids.
I just put the idea out there and give something for everybody to chew on there for a while. So thank you very much.
Thank you for your call.
Bye-bye.
You have a call for Dodge Europe. This is the place to call. DSN 389-4595, DSN 389-4595. Civilian phone 0621-46085-595. For listeners in the state of Hessen in Germany, we're broadcasting the show on 98.7 today because our 873 AM transmitter is off the air. We're working on it, and we'll let you know when that transmitter is back. We have a question here about homeschool, and this one comes from Becky Owen, and she says, I'm the leader of the Wiesbaden Military Community Homeschool Group and would like to know more about the current homeschool policy. And would that be you, Harvey?
Sure. I'd be happy to answer that, and thank you for the question. Homeschooling is an area that DODS and our big organization, DODEA, has really tried to take a lead in terms of our approach to our relationship with homeschooling communities. And this is not really something that you see a lot in the United States, but we want to welcome homeschool families and homeschool children into our schools, and to provide them with support and to work with homeschoolers in partnership so that the resources that might be available to us can be shared. So one of the things that you find in a DOD school that you don't often find in schools in the United States is that what we call auxiliary services are available to homeschooled students on the same basis as they are to a student who's attending the school. And that's for our space-required kids. And so what that means is that if your homeschooled child wants to participate in the high school football team, they can go out for the team, the same as any other child in the school, and they can make the squad and participate, and we will support their participation in that team. The libraries are open to our homeschoolers. The testing is available using the Terra Nova, and a number of other things. And the expectation in Dodds as a whole is to be a receptive school system to our homeschool families. Diana, you want to add anything to that?
I think that covers it. We are happy to have you in our schools. We're happy to have you working with the schools who attend our services regularly, and we want to work with you, and we want you to appreciate what we have to offer and take advantage of it.
Expand that question just a little bit. Let's say you have a couple that, say, one person is married to a foreign national, a German or an Italian, and a DoD civilian or a soldier. What about if their kids go to a German school? Would those kids also be able to participate in Dodds sports?
Well, that's a good question, George, and that has come to us on a number of occasions, because a lot of the host nation schools don't have the same type of activities, extracurriculars, that you find in American schools. But because we try to conform as closely as we possibly can to the American National Federation of High School Sports rules, we say that once a student is enrolled in another school system, that is the school system in which they are aligned, and our activities wouldn't be open in that case to those students. Homeschooled students are a little bit different. Part of the reason for that is there's legislation that allows us to make that exception. It's actually part of the National Defense Authorization Act of 2005, I think. I may have the year wrong, but it permits us to do that. But it's the same sort of thing that you would find in the United States. If a student is enrolled in, say, in the Washington area, the Arlington County schools, they would not be eligible to participate in athletics in the Alexandria schools. And that's the same approach that we take for host nation students.
You're listening to An Open Line with Dodge Europe. Director of Dodge Europe here, Diana Oman, Chief of Staff, Sue Gurley, and the Chief of the Education Division, who you just heard from, Harvey Gary. If you'd like to call us, the number is DSN 389-4595 or civilian 0621-460-85-595, or email openline@afne.army.mil. Let's say with you have someone who's going to a German school district or an Italian school district, and they're getting their education in German or Italian, and for whatever reason they go, hey, you know, I like this Dodge education thing. I think they got it going on, and we're going back to the States. We want to get into Dodge Europe now. What would someone go through to say they're going through, say, a German school district, and now all of a sudden they're at Dodge and they're saying, we want to register with you? Is that possible? And if so, how do you place a student like that who's been learning in a foreign language all these years?
Yeah. George, I can answer that question. We would certainly entertain enrolling a student at any time that a parent decided that they were getting ready to transition to the States. And should their child or the student have good skills in the foreign language and may need additional support, we can certainly make that happen. The schools stand ready to accept all the students that are eligible to enroll in our school at any time.
Sue Gurley. We have someone on the phone right now, Maggie in Heidelberg, and she has a question about special education. Hello, Maggie.
Hello, and good morning to everyone. My question is in reference to training for teachers that handle special needs children. I understand that they do get some training, and of course I also understand that funding is an issue right now. However, I'm always concerned about teachers not having more training than what they do. I've been very lucky here in Heidelberg. At the school the staff has been outstanding. However, I see sometimes that some of the teachers need updated training, if you will. And I was wondering whether anything could be done in terms of that, of sending them to training either back to the States or perhaps here, cross-training maybe with your medical staff, with the hospitals. if you would consider anything like with the behavioral management, psychiatry department, or anything like that, where these teachers can kind of get an up-to-date training on what's been going on, especially now with autism and all these special needs that we're getting more of.
Maggie, I can answer that question for
Okay,
you.
thank you.
It's a very good question because we always want our teachers to be as up-to-date as possible in the areas that they're responsible for. And specifically, we're challenged very much by students with very specific kinds of disabilities, such as children with autism or more significant emotional disabilities that challenge our management of their behavior in the classroom. And we have at Dodds Europe 2 consultants that are that continuously do school visits and provide training to staff in a program we call Nonviolent Intervention Prevention, and it's designed specifically to work with children who are very frequently have very disruptive kinds of classroom behaviors. We have those 2 consultants available to provide training. And recently, DODEA was able to obtain a program objective memorandum which funded the school system with a large amount of money in which we've infused a lot of training for special education. And most recently, it's been focused very much on literacy and literacy development for students with special needs, those with very mild kinds of disabilities, such as a learning disability, or even those with more significant kinds of disabilities, those might be intellectually disabled. So we've done some recent training in that area, and we have a lot of partnerships with our EDIS, the
Right.
Educational and Developmental Intervention Services, and those folks often provide training to our teachers.
Okay. And the teachers are allotted the time to take this training, because sometimes I feel, and I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but they do so much, and I sometimes personally find that the teachers just are stretched out to the limit, and it looks like they just don't have enough time to go out and get the training and or the latest training. Yeah, right. Is the time is allowed for these teachers to go ahead and do this?
Mm-hmm. Yes, Maggie. Oftentimes, if a district like the Heidelberg district is desiring to provide training for the teachers, they will provide substitutes for those who need it. Some of our teachers, such as the speech-language pathologists,
right.
don't require a substitute. They usually try to make up the time that's missed with the
right.
students. So it can be as small as individual to the school. The school could decide to do training in the school setting itself, or there could be training provided by the district or even by the area.
Now, one final thing. That also would go out as well to the substitutes? Because sometimes I particularly have my son is a child with special needs, and sometimes we do have some substitutes, and I know that they're more than willing to be trained as well, but I also wonder whether they could also take advantage of the training.
Right. We provide specific training to our paraprofessionals as well. They are required actually to do training 3 times a year on a quarterly basis, and that is guided by the area office, and we provide modules for the aides to provide training or to get training. And as far as substitutes, though, we have no requirement specifically because we have such a huge cadre of substitutes, some of whom sub more often in special education and some who do not. But if that's an area that's of concern to you, I would encourage you to bring that to the attention of your school administrator and perhaps work through the School Advisory Council to raise this issue.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you very much for answering my questions and for taking the time, and I appreciate the show.
Good. Well, thank you very much for calling. We appreciate that. You heard the Chief of Staff of Dodge Europe, Sue Gurley. We have, I believe, another caller on the line from Heidelberg, Kelly. and she's scheduled to PCS before the school year ends, and she's wondering what she and her family can do to prepare. Hi, Kelly. Kelly, you should probably turn down your radio because you'll hear a little bit of a echo there, and it might disorient you a bit.
43 car, that will continue.
You still there, Kelly?
Yes.
Oh,
Okay.
great. We have your attention, and you've got ours. Your question, please.
I was just wondering, because we PCS in May, like, what do we do because school ends in June? Will he get credit or held back?
Okay, good question.
Hi, Kelly. This is Harvey Gary. Well, there's a couple of things that you can do, but I think really the most important thing is that you go to the school as soon as possible and speak with your child's teacher, the school counselor, or the school principal. You will want to take along with you to your new location your child's academic records so that the new school can look at those and see what has been done this year, and make an appropriate placement once you arrive. The other thing, I'm not sure exactly when you're planning to PCS, but if you're concerned about your child receiving credit for the year, that's a really important question for you to talk to the principal about and your child's teacher. We do with PCS, we recognize that this happens with military families on a routine basis. We do have what we call an accelerated withdrawal program, which permits the child to do the work on a sort of an accelerated basis so that they are able to finish the school year. But there's a specific cutoff date for that. I believe it's the
14th, you must be in school all day. The 15th, you do not need to be if your work is made up.
Okay, so the 14th of May would be the last full day of school of attendance for your child, and then the 15th, if all the work is there, then your child could withdraw with full credit. But that's something you really need to talk about with with your teacher and the school counselor. Does that help with your question?
Well, kind of, but we fly on the 12th of May.
Okay, so it really is very important for you to speak with the teacher, and the other thing, one of the things that we really become concerned of is that if you leave early in the year, before that accelerated withdrawal date, our assumption is that your children are going to enroll in a new school in your new PCS location. And if there's something that's going to prevent you from doing that, there are two options that are open to you, the decisions that you need to make. One is you either request that you be permitted to stay in our school until we hit that accelerated date, because we really want to make sure your child benefits from the entire year of instruction. This is really something that we've studied very carefully, and we want to make sure that we're doing the right thing for your child so the transition to the new school is smooth and doesn't penalize your child in any way. The other thing that you would want to do would be to find out what's going on at the school in your new location and see what type of arrangements they might be able to make for you.
Does that help, Kelly?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your call.
Thank you.
And if you'd like to give us a call, DSN 389-4595, civilian 0621-46085-595. Again, the civilian number is 0621-46085-595. Also, if you're by a computer, send us something at openline, one word, at afne.army.mil. One thing that we didn't touch on yet is kindergarten. Kindergarten, when can kids go to kindergarten with Dodge Europe?
Well, the cutoff date for a 5-year-old is their birthday must be on or before the 31st of October of the school year, and this is the same for a first grader. They've got to turn 6 by that point in the year, and we adhere pretty carefully to that cutoff date. It's very much in line with what we found to be practices in the United States. Of course, you find different states with different cutoff dates. But what we're really trying to do is ensure the child's readiness for school and for their future education. So when we talk about a 5-year-old and the cutoff date for their enrollment, we're thinking as much about that child when he or she turns 9 or 16 or when they hit graduation, and we want to make sure that we're thinking about the entire course of instruction for that child from grades K through 12. Now, one of the things that's come up recently is discussion about should that cutoff date continue to be the end of October, and we're discussing that with our military partners at a thing that we call the Dependents Education Council, which is a panel of very senior military leaders at the 2- and 3-star level, generally speaking, and have asked them what to pulse the communities and see what their response would be to any type of change to that date. So that's going on right now, and it's still subject to discussion. It is something that we look at every few years. We look at what the National Association for the Education of Young Children recommends, and to make sure that what we're doing prepares the child for future education, and that that our practice isn't so radically different from what's going on in the United States that it penalizes a child sort of unintentionally.
One thing that every school deals with is discipline. Sometimes kids don't do what they're supposed to, or they show up late, or there's other infractions. How do you handle discipline issues in Dodge Europe in general? Is that something that's localized? Is it a high school principal decides, or is there some kind of standard operating procedure that applies to all schools?
What applies to all schools is that we will have order and maintain discipline in our schools. And each school has a handbook. And in that handbook, they lay out the process and the whole program for disciplining in their schools. So it is a fairly individual thing. Every school's handbook does not look the same, but every school has developed what they have in their handbook because it works in their community and in their school. So, no, it is not uniform, but it certainly works in each of the schools. There are some things that we think about in general, and that is that students who come back and forth all the time from different places all over the United States come with different backgrounds. And so what they have known in a previous school may not be the same expectations that we have out here in Europe. And so sometimes we talk generally about discipline in Europe and in military communities and military schools might not be exactly what you thought it was back in the States.
We have another caller, and this caller is from Ramstein. Her name is Dawn, and she has a question about picking coaches. Hello, Dawn. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing well. So you have a question about picking coaches for sporting teams, I suppose? Or?
Yes, in the high school age.
Okay. So the question exactly is, how do they pick coaches?
Yes, and how do they get them, just from in-house or at that school only, or surrounding schools? What is the rules about that?
Well, I don't know if I would say rules particularly, but I can talk to you about the process that we use. A coaching position is opened up for, first of all, anybody to take the position in the school where the position is vacant. And then if no one takes it or is interested in being that coach, they do ask other folks who are teachers in the local community, which means a middle school teacher or perhaps even an elementary teacher would come forward to volunteer for taking that vacancy.
Do they have to take from the high school first before they take a teacher from any other school around?
Yes.
They do.
Mm-hmm.
And even if the application looks as good as, if you're looking at the application, this person played college ball, they also played, coached for so many years, coached this team and that team, where their application looks a lot better than what is at the school.
Yes. The answer is yes. We try to match the vacancies first with the people in the school where the vacancy is before we try to match it anywhere else.
Okay, because I've been here and it's been a wonderful experience with the schools, and it seems like they just kind of stick with in-house because they've been there longer, met lots of wonderful people, and we are leaving. But my concern was when you go have a senior who's in sports and they're going to college, they do not get as much as they do for sports overseas here. It's a little bit harder. There's no baseball for boys, older boys. It's there, but not like what we get in the States. And then they're going back to try to get, scholarships to help them out with college. I have seen in my past people apply for these positions, and they took in the high school over a better-looking application.
That would be true.
And I would hope for everybody in the future that we could look at it a different way and maybe get the one who wants to be there for our children, since they don't get as much over here compared to in the States.
I can appreciate your input, and I do appreciate this call. I will tell you I will review the practices, but I also will tell you it's not quite as easy as just me taking my pen and saying, well, I'm going to change the way this works.
I agree. And like I said, it's been wonderful.
Good. Excellent.
But for the kids, it helps a lot.
Certainly does.
To get somebody who's there for the kids.
Yes, ma'am.
And I've had wonderful coaches.
Good.
I won't say that, but just to look a little bit further out there, I appreciate it.
Certainly. Thank
you.
Thank you, Dawn. Dawn from Ramstein. We have a caller on the line from Stuttgart. Simone,
yes,
hello. You have a question about homeschooling.
Yes. I have found that for my 7th grader, homeschooling is the best choice for us. But I would like to use the specials that are at the school, and I haven't quite figured out how to do that.
Well, you're welcome to do that. You're welcome to bring your child to our school for those classes. If you're going to enroll in a class in our school, you will need to enroll in our school. And so that would be one of the first things you'll have to do, is go to the school and enroll so that that child can then participate in that class.
Okay.
But and then transportation will be an issue for you, because we will, unless they can ride the bus like any normal child does at the beginning, or when we run buses, then it's going to be your problem.
Yes. I understand.
Well,
my
welcome.
question though is, where do I get to choose which campus he goes to? I believe there's a middle school on Patch, there's a middle school on Kelly, and I think there's one on Panzer.
There is a middle school at RB and a middle school at Berbligen.
Panzer.
Yeah, that's Panzer. So do I get to choose which school I enroll him in?
Normally that's dictated by where you live. You live in the zone that's zoned for a specific school. And that's dictated by the house where you live, your address, and then the district has outlined what specific school you should attend by where you live.
Is it possible for you to give me a contact name or number for who I should call to get the ball rolling?
Let's see. The principal at the RB school is
Dr. Scheck.
And the principal at the Berbligen School on Panzer is Harriet Hunter Boykin.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. Harriet
Hunter Boykin.
Okay, thank you very much. So I shouldn't come against any obstacles for enrolling him.
No.
Just for these specials.
No.
For instance, the German language.
I do not think there would be an obstacle, no.
Yeah. Simone?
Okay.
Simone,
yes?
This is George Smith. If you could please just hold, our producer would like to get your phone number and maybe email, so in case our experts have any further questions or clarifications, they can contact you afterwards. So could you hold right after we're done?
Sure.
Okay. And Harvey, did you have something to add?
Simone, I just wanted to add one thing. We do make a distinction between what we call space-required students and space-available students. Oh, yeah. So if you fall into the space available, which would be, for example, space-required would be probably 98% of our students who are the children of military personnel who are over here on official orders. And if that's the category that you fall into, there's no problem with this enrollment.
We're on official orders, but we're not military.
So you're like a DoD civilian?
Yes.
Yeah, sort of like I am. So that's not a problem.
Okay.
Now, if indeed that particular class is full, if the class size is already at 27, 28, or 29, that could be an obstacle, because it's not our wish to have class sizes that get up to 29, 30, and 31.
I understand that. The
Okay.
kids don't learn anything at that point
Yeah,
anyway.
exactly. So those two things, your status as far as your orders, and then whether or not there's already more students than we need to have in any given class, would be two obstacles that I can think of.
Okay.
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 Well, thank you.
Thank you, Simone, and our producer will be with you just a moment to get your particulars.
Okay.
You're listening to a Dodge Open Line, and we're taking your calls. You may call DSN 389-4595, DSN 389-4595. Have about 20 more minutes left in the show, 11:40 Central European Time. If you're calling from a civilian phone, it's 0621-460-8595. We've talked off and on over the last hour and 40 minutes about substitute teachers. Let's say someone out there has some skills or a desire to be a substitute teacher. What kind of credentials should they have, and where do they go to apply for a job?
Well, first of all, you have to be a U.S. citizen. That is required to be a teacher in our school, and a substitute. If you desire to be a substitute, you can get an application to the system online by going to any of the district websites, or to the Dodge Europe website, or to the DODEA website. It's probably best to go to the district website, because then they know exactly your application and your desire to become a substitute. We require that you have a high school degree, graduation, and that's about it. Of course, we would prefer that you have high school and graduation credits beyond high school, and specifically a teaching degree if you'd like to be a substitute, but it's not required.
Okay. We have another caller. This is Danny from Spangdahlem. Good morning.
Good morning.
Your question.
Yes, I'm getting ready to enroll my 2 4-year-olds, hopefully into Sure Start this fall, and both of them have severe food allergies. And I was wondering how the district deals with that, because I'm nervous to send them to public school. I had a friend that's military that recommended me getting a 504, but I understand you guys don't use those over here.
We do.
What's a 504?
It's like a special medical plan. It's a law that makes it so the school has to abide by certain things. It puts a plan in place for my school, and it's kind of like an IEP, but different.
You're Danny, you did a great explanation of the 504 plan.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
You educated me. Thank you.
Danny, as far as 504 plans, yes, Dodge Europe and the DODEA system does recognize 504 plans, although it's not in our legislated requirements. It is something that, in the spirit of the law, we do follow, and we would be happy to work with you if you would like to develop a 504 plan for your youngsters. As far as food allergies go, we do not have a specific requirement that says we're going to ban any specific school foods from our schools, because I think generally there's a feeling that people tend to become a little bit complacent and lax when there's the idea that perhaps there's a ban on this food, so it's okay, we won't have to worry about that food ever coming into the school. But in terms of working any specific health issues, our school nurses are ready and willing to work with individual families on developing a health plan for your child that would specifically identify what food allergies your child might have, and make everyone in the school community aware of that, so that we can help to protect against any errant foods coming into the school that might put your child at risk.
Okay. Are the teachers trained to use EpiPens and stuff within the classroom, and like cafeteria workers? I mean, those are the big things, because my children have some very odd allergies, like tomatoes and peas and bananas, things like that. I mean, nuts is another big one for us, but
right.
These are ones that are common, tons of food have peas in them.
And right. And many foods have peanuts and nut allergies, and we're highly aware of that as well. Yes, our school nurses are trained to use EpiPens. Some of our schools have them on.
What about the teachers? That's the big thing, is I'm worried about, like, in the classroom.
Right. Specific teachers that have a child in their classroom can be trained and will be trained. I think that makes a lot of sense for our teachers to be trained. Our paraprofessionals also, if we have a known child with perhaps a 504 plan or some other individualized health plan, would be trained also to deal with any kind of emergency situation.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to make sure there were things put into place and that the district has some sort of plan, I guess, to deal with
well,
the allergies, because I don't want to put my children into school, unknown. And
Sure, absolutely, Danny. I think the key is for you to get with the school and communicate what your children's needs are, so that they can be sure to address it.
Okay, and how early should I start doing that? I don't even know if they'll get into the Sure Start program, because it's there's only 18 spots here at Springdale.
Right, anytime. I think as soon as you get your application into the school, you can start the conversation.
Okay, I will plan on doing that at the end of this month then.
Great.
Very good.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Interesting question. With school lunch programs in particular, is there one school lunch program for all schools, or is that an individual thing depending on that school?
Actually, Dodds Europe does not supervise the lunch program. APHES is in charge of the lunch programs. So they work with, of course, many people to provide those lunches, and we have many of the same things that you would find in schools in the States. We have free lunches and reduced lunches and adult lunches and, all of those kinds of things. And the lunch menus and the produce and the products they use are not anything that we are involved with, but rather APHES is involved with.
And so I guess an individual school would negotiate with APHES as far as what they would have there, or are they really not part of the process at all?
There is a piece that youngsters and teachers and parents play in that APHES has in the past, and I think probably will continue to ask for opinions about, do you like this or that? Would you want more of that or less of that? Those kinds of things. But as far as development of the menu and development of the schedule, that's an APHES thing.
If you'd like to give us a call, the number is DSN 389-4595. We're talking education, Dodge Europe education in particular. Again, DSN 389-4595. On the line now, Cynthia from Grafenveer. And Cynthia has a question about if a new grade policy is coming out.
Cynthia.
Oh, Cynthia, you should probably turn down your radio. That echo will throw you off a bit. Are you still there, Cynthia?
Yes, I'm here.
Great. Your question, please.
Yes, I heard a rumor from several different people at my children's school that there's going to be a new grading policy coming from Dodds.
Wow.
Cynthia, what grade are your children in?
They are currently in the 8th grade. They'll be going into 9th.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure what that specific rumor is based on. We do look at how we assess students' progress on a routine basis, and there's a little difference in the way you do it for children in primary grades and sort of the middle school grades versus the high school grades. There's been some talk and speculation, and there are a lot of different schools of thought on how you should calculate a student's grade at each of those levels. But particularly, one of the interesting things that we've been kind of thinking about is how do you determine the grade point average for a student who gets below 50 on an exam, which most of us would consider to be not an acceptable grade. But mathematically, that throws the entire average. It skews it to the left, and it makes it may artificially lower the student's average. So that's a discussion that we've been having, and frankly, you can find two major schools of thought on that. One is that it should be just calculated according to the actual percentage rate, and the other one would be, well, if once you go below 50, what's the point in doing that? It's an unacceptable grade, whether it's a 20, a 30, or a 40. And there has been no conclusion made about that. It's just a topic of discussion among the educators in the school system.
Okay. Does that answer your question, Cynthia?
Well, sort of, because I was told that they were planning on implementing a no-fail policy.
Yeah, that comes up routinely, and again, I think that's just a rumor. There is no fail policy in Dodds. Our mission is to ensure student achievement and to ensure that kids are succeeding, and frankly, it's distressing to a teacher when a child fails a class, and they will do whatever they can to.
Yes, distressing to the parent too.
Yeah, I bet it's distressing, and I bet it's distressing to the child as well. And so, what we want to be able to do is make sure that the instruction that's been provided to the child gives them as much chance to succeed as possible. And so, in striving to do that, I think sometimes people believe that there's a written policy that says no child will fail in Dodds, when in fact our goal is that no child fails. But we may have to make very special interventions based on the child's achievement and what the teacher and parents are assessing in terms of their progress.
Okay.
Thank you for your call, Cynthia.
Thank you.
On the line, Raul from Mannheim with a question on scholarships. Hello.
Good morning, ma'am, sir. I'm in Mannheim. I'm a DOD civilian, and my son goes to German school. And I just wanted to know if he could apply to any kind of scholarship for a university in the States. That's all.
Okay, stay tuned. We'll give you an answer.
I don't think there's a rule that says just because you're in a German school you can't apply for scholarships. I think people who offer scholarships have their own rules. And I'm thinking that yes, that you should be able to find through various ways and a lot through the internet many colleges and universities that would allow your child to apply for their scholarships, no matter if they're in German school or this school system. I'm thinking that you will find that scholarships will be available.
Okay. Thank you very much, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for your call.
Bye-bye.
That's really a good leap to another question, is you get a Dodds Europe education. What are your chances of going to college compared to, say, high school students in the States? Do you have any statistics to measure something like that?
Well, yeah, we do. One of our indicators actually is a participation rate of our students on the SAT exam, which is sort of one of the major stepping stones for a student who's thinking about going to college. And it starts really. It happens throughout the year, but this is one of the heaviest SAT seasons of the year. So I bet there's a lot of our students out there right now who are getting ready for the upcoming SAT. And among Dodds Europe students, about 65%, it varies from year to year, but it's right around there on average. 65% of our kids are participating in the SAT, which would indicate that they're confident enough to think of college as an alternative for after they graduate from high school. And then what we do at the end of each year is we ask our counselors to tell us how many kids have made an application to a college, whether it's a 2 or a 4-year college. We try to get as much information as we can about how many kids have been accepted. That's a little more difficult to pin down. And we also ask what is the rate of scholarship award among our students, our graduating class. And I don't know the number off the top of my head, but I do know that our kids compare very favorably to kids in the United States in terms of the scholarship awards that they're receiving, and for acceptance into the military academies as well as the ROTC programs. So we feel pretty proud of our students' view on life, if you will, in terms of where they're going after they graduate from high school. They're a very ambitious set of young people.
And would you say that colleges know a Dodds student? They say they know what Dodds Europe is generally. They're familiar with it. It's not like Germany. The students in Germany, this is a foreign national school.
Well, sure. Every once in a while we get funny stories about a university coming back to one of our students and offering to help them get a visa to come to the United States. But that's usually that's a rare circumstance. We just like to kind of chuckle about it. But I think we've got a very good reputation among American universities in higher education, and we have several colleges around the nation that actively recruit our students. They target our students for admissions materials and mailings and so forth. So it actually has been a long time since we've found somebody who doesn't know what APOAE means and called us up to tell us that there is no such place in the United States. We're doing pretty well, I think, on that score.
We have time for one more caller and one more email. We have about 4 minutes left in the show. On the line right now, George from Vilsec. Your question, George.
Yeah, hi, good morning. I understand you had this question earlier today, but now as a civilian contractor, I find that I have to pay almost $16,000 per child, and at one point I had up to 4, attending the Dodds School. I understand it's set up through an agency back in the States, but I was wondering if you could please explain it, especially when in dealing with situations at the school, we're constantly told we don't have enough money, and I know the money goes into a central pot, but I expect that money to be somehow spent over at this location. So could you please explain it, and I'll go off the line and hear your answer.
Okay, thank you, George.
Thank you.
George, back at our headquarters in the Washington, D.C. area, the folks in the budget division add up a lot of numbers and divide by whatever, and there's a formula about how much does it cost to run this school system, and then divide that out by student. So it is a formula, and it is in statutes. That's regulatory, how we have to do that process. And that's how we arrive at what the tuition will be that you must pay in order for your child to attend our schools. Now, when you pay that tuition, that money goes to the U.S. Treasury, but we keep track of how much tuition is paid to us, and then the Treasury does reimburse DODEA, our headquarters organization, those dollars. So it becomes a part of the appropriation that we get from Congress. So yes, that money does come back in total to DODEA as part of our appropriation, and it is then dispersed out to the 3 areas.
We have just about 2.5 minutes. This is an emailed question from Vicki, and her question is, she's from the Mannheim, Germany area, and according to Vicki, she says teachers are not communicating with her by email, and she's talked to a teacher and says that she has issues and questions that she has to communicate by email, but the teacher doesn't email her back. So she's wondering what she can do, because that's the best way she can communicate with this particular teacher. The specific issue, I'm going to pass on this email, Vicki, to the Dodge Europe staff here so they can give you a more thorough answer. We are running out of time, but basically communication's the issue.
Communication is an issue. If it's not going on, that's an important issue. I would encourage you, if you have talked to that teacher, then to discuss this problem with your principal. If indeed email is the best way for them to communicate with you, then surely there can be some arrangement made so that that can happen. Now, if you have talked to the teacher, then I would encourage you to have a conference with the principal and the teacher together.
Yep. And I'm going to have to jump in right now because we're just about out of time here. This has been a Dodge Europe Open Line with the Director of Dodge Europe, Diana Oman, Chief of Staff, Sue Gurley, and the Chief of the Education Division, Harvey Gary. And time for one last thought. Diana, anything that we want to stress other than I know one, early registration. You need to do it right now.
Absolutely. Yes, please do register in your school building or online. It's very important to us that you do that. And please come into our schools. Everyone is welcome. You can follow your students' progress much more quickly if you're there once in a while and take in the situation. So welcome. Come in.
Thank you. You've been listening to a Dodge Europe Open Line. News is next on AFN Europe.